Hello and welcome to your first class. This is the Introduction to Art in China. I'm Eileen Booth and thank you for coming along with me on this hybrid journey through this class. I think it's going to be really interesting and hopefully very wonderful for you. Okay, so you can either watch this introduction before you read the introduction in your book, or you can read it afterwards. I'm basically going to cover what is the topics are that you've read in the book with some visuals and with my voice. So I'll get started. Okay, first I just wanted to show you a map of China so you can keep in mind the vastness of the country. So here on the left you have China as it is today, the boundaries it is currently. And on the right side you can see an overlay of that outline over our United States and North America. So you can see it's rather vast going all the way into Quebec. And so just keep that in mind when we talk about modern day China. Okay, so the term Chinese art, I want to confront this right away. So this is a new terminology that we use to describe art in China, but it has a very long history. Pieces in this book will date back to 5,000 years ago. And here is just one example of a beautiful Chinese ceramic piece. This is Jar with Dragon. We're going to be using a lot of images from the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City's wonderful Hellbrunn timeline of art. They have gorgeous images, and I highly recommend using that as a resource for your projects later this semester. So, this is a 15th century piece. Okay, so no one in China before the 19th century saw these objects in the same field of study, which I know is kind of a surprising statement. But what I mean by that is that actually people in China, because these were used for so many different purposes, like for example, we have a dish in the shape of a leaf from the 7th to the early 8th century. So this would have been a decorative serving piece that a wealthy family had. Uh, the last piece we looked at was more of a decorative piece that might have actually been used in the export market along the Silk Road. We'll also be looking at things like silk paintings, which would serve an entirely different functionality of beautification in the home. So all of these objects were seen as having very different functions, and today we call them Asian art. In the 19th century, North Americans and Europeans, they were the ones who first categorized these items as being Chinese and being Chinese art items. Okay, I also want to address the terms the West and the East. So here we have a map, and you might notice that it looks a little bit different than the maps that we typically see when we talk about North America and we learn about our country in our schools. So North America is considered the West, and Southeast Asia, where China is considered the East. Western critics still compare Chinese art with the European tradition. So I want you to remember throughout this semester that we are looking and trying to interpret Chinese art and artifacts through European or Western eyes. So we're going to try to, using our global perspective, keep in mind that we are looking at them as most of us are non-Chinese. We at least don't live in China. So we're going to try to remind ourselves to interpret these items from, keeping in mind a Chinese perspective. And so even though this map shows that we are in the East and China is in the West, we are considered being the West according to our map, and China is considered the East. So you'll hear that a lot. We talk about Western perspectives and Western viewpoints, and that means us. That means us in Europe. And I just want to also point out that a lot of people aren't privileged enough, like you are, to study Asian art because many of our important Western museums have very few examples of Chinese art. And if you ever visit the Milwaukee Art Museum, you'll notice that there's way too small of a collection of Chinese art. Um, but we are lucky to have them Met, and they have an excellent collection. So that's one great example. There's also some really amazing Asian art collections in San Francisco, um, and I'll tell you some other resources throughout the semester. So George Hegel was a 19th century German philosopher. He saw art as the soul of the people. Now, interestingly, he grouped China as one homogenous group, like one group that has things a lot in common. This is very false, to say the least. He also believed that only Western critics could define what Chinese art is, which is very kind of one sided, right? So just think about that thought for a moment. You don't have to write anything or respond right now, but we may come back to this idea later. So just think about what Hegel's statement means to you as a global perspective, world thinking Alverno student. To group all of China as one same country, and think about what you might know about Tibet and Taiwan, and maybe you've heard about Hong Kong lately in the news. These are all Chinese territories. They're all China, but they're all very, very different. So we're going to be looking at how diverse the country China is this semester, and I hope you'll be really interested in that. So just to kind of close out this section, think about how you respond to Hegel's statements. Think about how it made you feel to group all of China and all of Chinese art into kind of one category. And let's see if this semester surprises you and shows you that there are lots of different pieces of art and lots of different kinds of people that live in China.